welcome back. This is the fourth and last segment of the conversation with Father Graham, and it features Linda Walmsley, who's the lay chaplain at the Holy Cross High School, who polled the kids there to find out what questions they would like to ask Father Graham. Before you start on the questions, Linda, can I just ask you to explain why it's you that's asking the questions rather than the kids actually being here to ask the questions?
Well, Paul, you know that everything that we do these days is governed by regulations, and much as we would have loved to have had one of our pupils join you tonight, that doesn't comply with our safeguarding policies. And so you get me instead. But what that does mean is that I'm bringing the views of several of our pupils. So, you know, a bit of a win, really. So, yeah, thank you, Father Graham, for putting yourself up for this. It's going to be interesting to see the contrast between the things that challenge our minds and the things that challenge our young people. And I think what stood out for me is that what they are interested in when I say, what would you like to ask a priest, is in you as a person. I think the questions reflect that. So the first thing they wanted to know is, why did you become a priest? And as part of that, one of them said, do you think something inspired him? So I said, I don't know, but I will ask him, did something inspire you to become a priest?
I always felt a calling, but it was one of those things that drifted in and out. And then when I was at first year secondary school, we had houses and we had house assemblies. My housemaster was a man called Mr. Shuttleworth. And one day at an assembly, he said, now this would have been 1971. He said, by the year 2000, in Huyton, there may only be one priest. And at that time, there were 10. And it was as stupid as me thinking, one priest can't do all this. If I become a priest, we'll have 2. It was as naive as that. But that was the inspiration. That was the point that I went home, reflected on it, and I went to see the young curate who was in my home parish at that time, Father Lawrence May, and said I felt as though I was called to the priesthood, and he started the ball rolling. Another priest in the parish, Father Matthews, had a great rapport with the young people. When he preached, he put on funny voices. He was a complete and utter eccentric, but engaged. He helped run the scout troop. He took youngsters to Lourdes, and he was the kind of, when I thought of what a priest did, it was the kind of things that Father Matthews did. So they would be the 2 points of inspiration for why I became a priest.
And there we come full circle, and there you are stepping into Father Main's shoes. Wonderful. So I'm not sure that this next question is going to be relevant, but it will have, I'm sure, have occurred at some point. If you were making this decision and you were second year at high school, one of the things children were concerned about is, was it harder to make that decision, knowing that making a decision to become a priest meant that you would never have a wife or you would never have children?
It didn't make it hard when I was 12, because as with most 12 years old, the last thing on your mind was having a wife and kids. But as you went through seminary and you became a teenager, when you then went to university, yes, it did occur to you that you wouldn't be able to have a wife and children. And did it make it hard? No. It was something that I realized. It was something that you accepted.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that maybe the pupils would not understand is that as a priest, you can't have a wife and therefore you don't have children. But it is very important for priests to have female friends and to have that feminine influence in your life. And I am very, very grateful to a number of close women friends that I have who, in some ways, as a confidant, I would use as a husband might use a wife. That you need that female contact, thoughtfulness, and person to be able to unload to. And I've been blessed in my priesthood to have some very influential and supportive female friends. And to say that as a priest, the not being able to have a hug is as soul destroying as it would have been for anybody else who's waited this length of time to be able to have a hug.
Yeah. What would you have done if you weren't a priest? Did you have an alternative ambition apart from playing for Everton, obviously? You know.
Right. Well, on the grounds, I was never good enough, even for Everton. That was never. I had an uncle who always inspired me. He told great stories, and his life seemed really exciting. And he was a customs officer. So I would have liked to have been a customs officer. I would have to say, if I hadn't become a priest, the likelihood is I would have been a bus driver. Because my two brothers became bus drivers. My brother-in-law became a bus driver. So there seemed to have been bus driving in the family. But I would have liked to have been a customs officer like Uncle Jim.
Interesting, interesting. What is the best thing you do as a priest?
That's very hard to say. Different things in different times. Sometimes to be with a family when they're grieving is very powerful. I've sat with parents when they've had a child die and said nothing and come out and felt totally drained and totally useless. And the parents said, "Thank you, that meant so much." So there's that. Then there's the joy of being at a wedding. There's just so much. What I would say is the question of, is it hard not to have a wife and children? Yes, but there have been so many occasions as a priest that I have been ecstatic because of the privileges I've been granted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand. I remember a priest some years ago told me that he never felt like he'd given anything up to become a priest, and anything he had given up was more than compensated for by what he gained from it. And I thought that's something that we ought to pass on to young people, because we talk about vocation and talk about what they may have to give up if they have a vocation, but actually what they're going to gain from that is massive, isn't it?
Infinitely blessed more than you give up.
Yeah, wonderful. So you do some wonderful things as a priest, but the question, we thank Daniel for this, Is Mass as boring for you as it can be for us?
Right. I would say no, but then I'd have to say I once went to Brompton Oratory, and it was the All Right Mass. And I sat there and thought, what the hell's going on? I haven't a clue. And the music was fabulous.
Yeah.
But I'm not really into classical music. So although I appreciated that it was fabulous, it didn't do a great deal for me. And I sat there, and because I didn't know what was going on, I got my rosary beads out and started to say the rosary. And so what was going on at Mass, I was bored with. And so what I would say was it Daniel you say?
Daniel, yeah.
Daniel, is Mass can be boring if you don't know what's going on. But if I'd have known what was going on, as I know what's going on in the new Mass, you invest in it and commit yourself to it, it is not boring.
Mm-hmm.
It is uplifting and nourishing. But you do have to, I can understand if you don't go very often and there's this guy up there speaking in some words that you don't even know about something you don't understand. How do you connect with that? You have to have some understanding of it beforehand if it's going to nourish you.
Mm.
So I would say I did go to a Mass that I was bored at, but that was my fault. I didn't know what it was about. But that would take me back to what we were talking about for young people. And what my answer that I gave there was, if what we're inviting young people to is out of their experience, and we don't help them understand it, and we don't allow them, if, as with me, the music was fabulous at Brompton Oratory, it just wasn't my style. But if what we're doing is say, this is how Mass is done, we don't help them understand what Mass is, and then we give them it in a style that they don't particularly engage with, they will get bored. The other thing I would say to Daniel is, when he says, is Mass boring for me as it is for him, is it the Mass that's boring or just the homily?
Well,
because I would have to say, when we were at college, we were told, the guy said, if you haven't struck oil within 10 minutes, stop boring. So I've tried to keep to that. But so again, is it the Mass that's boring or is it the homily? If it's the Mass that's boring, what you need to do is engage yourself and find out why do they do that? What's being said there? And if you put in that kind of effort and you understand what's going on, it will enrich you. But thanks for the question.
I sometimes think that's why altar servers stick at it, because from my children's point of view, I know that they always say, well, if you're serving, you have to pay attention all the time because you don't know when you're going to have to do something. So you're invested in it, aren't you? And you understand better what's happening. And then it becomes more meaningful and it's hard to be bored.
You get told you ring the bell here because.
Exactly. The bell is ringing because something important's happening. Can you tell me what that is? So yeah, we've got to engage them more, haven't we? We're working on it. So your final question, would you like to be Pope one day?
I don't even want to be a bishop one day. I want to be parish priest of St. Gregory's and St. Oswald's.
Perfect.
That's the height of my ambition.
Very lofty ambition, I think. And we're very, very blessed to have you.
I would say, saying about lofty ambition, there's a play, Becket, and in that, Thomas à Becket goes to Rome, and he appeals to the Pope, and he's being interviewed by two cardinals, and he's the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he says to the two cardinals, "Let me go back to England as a simple parish priest." And one cardinal turns to the other and says, "How ambitious can a man be?"
Wonderful.
I don't think as priests, we don't realise what a great privilege it is to be a priest in a parish. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Graham. Thank you very much. I'll hand back to Paul and see if anyone would like to add anything to that discussion.
Okay, thanks very much, Linda and Father Graham. It was a fascinating set of questions and fascinating answers. Simon, have you got anything you'd like to ask Father?
Well, only because of the football that's going on, and I know what a great football fan you are, Father. And I'm a Preston fan, so I get just as much ridiculing as you do. But I'm just thinking, on Sunday being a special day for a priest with mass, etc., I hope you are going to get a chance to watch the final. And where will you be watching it, and who will you watch it with?
Because, as with all good football fans, I'm suspicious. I will be watching it at home with Monsignor McKenna, because we've watched all the other matches together, and to do anything other than that might bring us bad luck. So we will be watching the match at home together.
And are you confident?
I am confident that we're in with a chance. I would say, depending on how we play, if we play like we played in the latter stage of the second half and the first half of extra time, we've got as good a chance as any. If we play like we did in the first 20 minutes, I think we could struggle against Italy.
Thanks, Father.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to hand over to Alison, but first of all, I'd like to say it was very, very hurtful of you there, Simon, to mention England's progress when there's a Scotsman on the call.
Sorry, Paul, I forgot about
that. Alison, have you got anything you'd like to ask?
Paul, can I just say before Alison said, remember, if we win it, you'll be able to say you were the only team to get a draw with us.
Yeah. Well, I was the same when you won the World Cup. I think we were the first team to beat you. So actually, we became the world champions at Wembley. But that's another story. Alison, have you got any questions to ask?
No, just to say, enjoy the football, Father, and thank you for spending the evening with us.
Good.
Thank you.
I think that it's a good point to finish it all. Thank you very much for bearing with us hopefully on the 4 episodes. I'd like to thank Simon, Alison and Linda for coming, but an especially big thanks to Father Graham for his honesty, openness and desire to answer the questions as best he possibly could. I think he deserves a big clap, so he's getting one from me anyway. Thank you very much, Father. That was fantastic. I hope that you'll join us in the future, because this has been the first of a series of conversations with, and we will get out to ask more important people more important questions. So thank you very much indeed, and good night.